All right, so hopefully everything looks good and sounds good. Been working on it for a while now, but we have everything good to go. And we are here with Scott Horton, Eric July, and Mance Rayder. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, yeah.
What's up?
Hey, other than Mance, everyone else is in Texas, so hoorah and all that stuff. I just learned, I don't know why, because I always look it up on who else is born on July 31st. And I learned that Milton Friedman was born this day too.
Okay.
I never knew that.
Oh, shit. I just realized today would have been my dad's 70th birthday.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah. He died last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Ah, jeez.
Wow.
I'm bringing it down, y'all.
Oh, man.
That sucks, man.
Man.
If you're a WWE fan, Roddy Piper died today too.
Oh, man.
Really?
Yeah.
They Live, man. One of the best movies. Oh,
man.
Yeah, they were just playing at the Alamo Draft House, I think, recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's that, and The Thing, I think, is Carpenter's best too, by far.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because Red Letter Media was talking about that. They're talking about The Thing and just how well it holds up, the special effects and everything. Even though it's from '82, it still looks like it could have been made today. Well, there's some outdated parts, but it's definitely better than the 2011 The Thing. That movie was a piece of shit.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I think they said like They Live had the longest intro of any movie without a dialogue up until There Will Be Blood.
Really?
Like, if you watch the intro to it, he's just walking around looking at things, and it goes on for like 11 or 12 minutes. And then There Will Be Blood is like, I think it's 20 minutes before there's any dialogue in the movie.
That movie is just like There Will Be Blood. That movie is really good, but it's one of those you have to be in the mood to watch. You can't just pop it in and be like, all right, let's go watch There Will Be Blood.
It's disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy movie. I don't know. I think I'm trying to, because I think isn't 2001 the movie with the least amount of dialogue, isn't it? 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I think my wife is the only one who actually understands what that movie's about. The only person I ever heard explain it.
Really?
Made any sense? You know how he ends up in the hotel room at the end and all that?
Right.
So the whole thing was that HAL 9000 was supposed to kill them. HAL 9000 was the next step in the human evolution. And the big tablet thing waiting in orbit around Jupiter was waiting for the HAL 9000. Then the stupid humans screwed everything up by killing HAL 9000. And so they just took him and put him in a hotel room for the rest of his life because they didn't know what to do with him after that. That was the whole thing, is the humans were supposed to invent an artificial intelligence that would replace them, and then that would go on into the universe.
Like this?
Something like that, yeah. Exactly.
Like a fucking iPhone. We did it.
Right.
But I never heard anyone else. I've heard a lot of people say they don't know what the hell is supposed to be, what the movie's supposed to be about, but she knows.
I've never seen it sober, so I have no clue.
Especially that was it, the dream sequence or whatever it is towards the end, it's just flashing colors and it's like you're in a 1960s psychedelic music video or some shit. That's a good movie. I think with Kubrick, I think his best movies either Full Metal Jacket or Barry Lyndon.
I haven't seen any of those in a while.
Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
There's a lot of messages in there, hidden behind all the ultra violence.
It's interesting knowing how different the book is from that movie, and how much he changed from. It's kind of like with American Psycho too. There's a lot of.
Oh yeah.
It kind of like the character is more. I think in the book he's more just he doesn't give a shit, but in American Psycho they kind of make him a little bit more human-like, I guess. But when you in the book, he's just whatever. I'm doing my thing. Fuck all y'all. And that kind of thing.
That's like every Stephen King book ever adapted for a movie. Yeah, the thing about Stephen King is great characters, great dialogue, no ending. The endings of his movies, and Dave Collum made this observation on Twitter this week, and I was like, shit, that's the problem I've always had with his books. Is there's no ending to it. They're just sort of weird. But like the movie The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right?
Total piece of garbage. You read the book, and it's like one of the better dystopian tales you'll ever read. And it's not. I mean, it's nothing. It's literally like the difference between World War Z the book and World War Z the movie. World War Z the book is one of the coolest things you'll ever read because it reads like a UN report. It's designed as a UN report on past events, and then they what's his name, Max Brooks sold the movie, and he said he knew what was going to happen. He sold the book. He said he knew they were going to change everything, and they changed everything in that movie. I mean, there is like, as well as I know that book, when I watched the movie, I didn't recognize anything. I mean, there was maybe one or two things that I recognized that were sort of in the book, but they changed everything. And it's like, how the
it's terrible. They turned it into Zionist propaganda.
Yeah.
Where thank God for the West Bank wall. Oh, but what ruins the West Bank wall? Those damn Muslims start singing songs and making too much noise, and that provokes the evil zombies to destroy our wonderful Zionist paradise. A bunch of garbage.
All the kumbaya and stuff like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they're like singing a song of like happiness and inclusiveness or whatever, and then that just proves they should have kept all the Muslim Christians and Muslims and Christian Arabs out, you know.
But this is Hollywood. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing about the sequel is that David Fincher is going to direct it, which is just kind of ridiculous to me. He seems like someone that wouldn't just, well, he did Alien 3, but he completely disowns that movie. But with World War Z 2 or whatever it's going to be called, I don't know why he would do the sequel. That just seems like kind of a random choice.
Is it going to be a sequel or a prequel?
I think it's going to be a sequel.
Okay.
The thing had a happy ending too. That was the worst, man, where he's reunited with his wife and kid at the end in the safe zone or whatever. Garbage. I never read the book, but
oh, you never read the book?
Horrible.
You've read UN reports, right, Scott?
Yeah, I'm afraid I have read UN reports.
It reads, it's a UN report. It's like the coolest thing because it's just people telling stories of exactly what happened. And I read the book and then I listened to the audio, and they had some of the coolest characters. Like Henry Rollins played one of the characters, played like a mercenary in the audiobook. I mean, it's like the coolest book, and they just completely fucked it up for the movie. Oh God.
So the book is basically just like you were saying, it's completely different from what the movie is. So what exactly, like what did they change from the book to? I know it's like pretty much everything, but what's like the main things that they changed?
Well, the Brad Pitt character, he basically goes and tries to find out what the genesis is of the infection. So it's the whole thing is him going and traveling to all these different places and interviewing people so that he can figure out where, you know, who, what do they call the originator of a, what's the scientific name for the originator of a disease where they,
like patient zero.
Yeah, like patient zero. So he takes it all the way back, and it's just all these stories. And this is after the whole outbreak and after they get everything under control. There's this scene in the book. It's called the Battle of Yonkers, and it takes place in New York. If they would have shot that in the movie, it would have been so friggin' amazing. It was just them trying to hold them off to keep them out of New York City. And it was just this line of soldiers just shooting them down as they're just piling in and piling in. You're reading the book and you cannot put the book down. And then you see the movie and you're like, what's this shit? Come on.
Ain't that always the way though, when they make a movie out of a book? Are there any exceptions to that?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. I mean, it is a good movie, but I don't know if it really compares to Kesey, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's it's
a good movie though.
Yeah, they got.
I
They did
think
pretty good.
I think they're. I mean, everything's going to be changed no matter what the source material is. They're always going to change something to, for general audiences. Like Jurassic Park is a good example where both the book and the movie, at least to me, it is both really good. But I don't know.
Come on, Eric, talk.
Yeah, man.
Nah, man, y'all talking about and I'm letting y'all talk. I'm interested, you know what I mean? I'm listening.
I know you
but
like
it's just like, I'm more of a like, I don't watch. I mean, I watch stuff like that, here and there, but I'm more, you see all this shit on my walls, man. Like that's, if it's not sports or it's like comic shit, then these days I'm not even giving it the time of day unless somebody's like getting their ass whooped repeatedly in the movie. Like, I'm an action film kind of guy, but yeah, that's pretty much it, man. So I mean, that's why I'm like just kind of on standby right now until we get somewhere, that I'm interested in as far as like the movie genres. But I did see World War Z though. I did see that, but I didn't read anything, so I have nothing to add.
What's the best comic book movie?
Iron Man 3.
Oh man, that's tough, man. I mean, probably I would say the Christian Bale's you could take really any of those Batman movies or out of the trilogy. I like them all. But my thing about comic book, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that a lot of not just comic book movies, but as well as TV shows and stuff like that, they get a lot of shtick from I wouldn't say just fans. It seems like it more so comes from people that are more like, all right, I know who Batman is. I know who the Hulk is. I know who Superman. I know who these, but I don't really read the comics or anything like that, which there's nothing wrong with that by any means. But I don't like some of these like shows, for example, definitely like CW, DC shows. Like some of those people think those are like the worst things ever, but I don't really share that opinion. You know what I mean? Because I think some of those, I would argue most of those are okay in my book, but for whatever reason, man, a lot of people give these, and even some of the movies, like what was the Justice League movies, what was the Batman and Superman, those got a lot of stick from fans, and they were like, oh man, it's so bad. I was like, I disagree. I think those movies were okay, you know what I mean? So I think it's more so coming from the fact that I'm just sort of biased super nerd in terms of comics. So anytime I'm seeing like a live depiction of a comic book character, I can at least get something out of it. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to say that something just is incredibly terrible. Though there are like, I'm going through this with Supergirl right now. I think that's probably my first depiction, and I'm like, all right, this is getting pretty bad in terms of a live depiction of something, more so because of where they're at politically and the garbage that they're throwing into that show. But other than that, I mean, for the most part, these I don't take a whole lot of issue with a lot of these shows and the movies that come out. Certainly in comparison to what I have my criticisms of them, but some people are like, oh, that's the worst thing ever, and I'm like, I can't agree with that.
You seen the first 3 seasons of Arrow?
Yeah, I did see the first 3.
Tell me that's not some of the best comics.
Yeah, it was good stuff. It was good. It was like the way that they developed that character, and having the sort of dialogue where I'm pretty sure there's a term for it, where they're doing the flashback in the process of telling the person's current narrative is I thought that was some of the best work that I had seen. You know what I mean? It was so good. So as we're learning, we're also learning how, what he's going through right now, but we're learning, what he went through in the past that got him up to this point. And that to me is just so interesting. And I'd imagine that that's hard to do from a writing standpoint, because you're jumping between these sorts of periods of time. But they did it so well. They did it absolutely so well, man. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So, man, it is some of the best. Just writing, I would argue, even if you don't dislike the act, or you dislike the acting, you gotta say that writing is pretty good.
Well, what about the new the Aquaman and the Shazam trailers? What do you think about those?
All right, Aquaman, I'm more intrigued by Aquaman, because I think Aquaman has gotten like the crappy end of the stick when it comes to not even just live action, but more so cartoon. He hasn't been, depicted in live action films that much. But he should be like, definitely in the comics, he's more of like a badass. I think it was more so that cartoon that dropped that that made him kind of this sort of, you know, people thought he was a fruit, you know what I mean? And they thought he was, you know, so Aquaman gets this sort of bad, you know, like everybody's like, oh man, he's like the weakest character ever. But no, he's supposed to be this, you know, uber strong sort of character. And I think what we saw him being sort of a badass in the Justice League movie, I think that is something that I'm actually excited to see. As opposed to this sort of corny sort of, oh, I just talk to fish kind of superhero. He's much more than that, but that's how, you know, that cartoon pretty much ruined him. So everybody thinks he's a soft superhero. So I'm more so excited about that. Shazam, yeah, or whatever, you know, you want to call him, Captain or whatever we're gonna call him. But yeah, Shazam, you know, him being, I'm interested to see how that goes. He is supposed this goofy kid that, you know, has these magic powers to be able to turn into a grown-ass man. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited, man. I'm really glad that some of these characters are really, you know, coming to film, you know, in the modern sense, because some of these guys have had, you know, films over the years or been part of films over the years, but with the technological advancement and the money that they can throw behind some of these characters, definitely nowadays and age when it seems that people are becoming more accepting of or not, this is more intrigued by comic characters, and we're seeing this with the Avengers and that whole Iron Man's and then his whole world, how people are like really stoked for these movies to come out, and a lot of people are seeing them, even more casual fans, even non-fans, and I think this is the perfect time to bring a lot of these cool characters to life, and I'm very interested. It's a good time to be a comic fan these days.
I don't know. I'm not really. I haven't really read comics, so I'm not really sure. I just kind of go off the movies. But I think in terms of, I mean, obviously Marvel has the better track record right now in terms of, you know, box office and
Absolutely,
you know, the critical. Even though, you know, critics probably don't really mean anything to the average audience, but it is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think I don't know. Did Ant-Man and the Wasp, that really interest you at all? Because
it did, because I mean, it was more so because they made me interested in. I was interested in it. I mean, again, I'm a nerd. I mean, so I'm always going to be interested in it. Right. But certainly in comparison to the other ones, because he wasn't in the Avengers. Spoiler alert. For those that haven't seen it, the recent Avengers movie, yeah, I was intrigued because I'm like, all right, well, okay, where the hell was he at? Where the hell was Ant-Man? Then you know, if you see the ending of that, it also leaves a lot to be desired, and I'm not going to spoil that for those that haven't seen it. When you patch that up with what's going on, or what happened in the recent Avengers movie, but I'm always intrigued by Ant-Man because both Wasp, more so Ant-Man, is in the comics at least a vital part of. He's not so much. We look at Iron Man as this leader of the Avengers, but like if you look at like the original Avengers, Ant-Man was a part. Even with Ultron, I thought that was weird, and which they make it seem like Iron Man was the one that started that, but it wasn't. Like in the comic, that wasn't the case. It was Ant-Man that essentially brought Ultron to life. So that's just an example. So I've always been intrigued by the character because he plays in the comic, definitely more so in the older ones, he's played such a significant role in bringing together the Avengers. Whereas it seems like his role in it, at least in the comics, or excuse me, in the live action films right now, seems to be more so like Iron Man is the head honcho, maybe Captain America every now and then, but obviously Iron Man being the first movie to really pop off this entire universe, the cinematic universe. He's played more of an important role, but there's a lot of similarities in I guess, in terms of the narrative, his effect on it, and you know, Ant-Man's on it in the original comics and stuff like that. So it's interesting. It's certainly interesting, but it interests me. I can understand why something like Ant-Man and the Wasp wouldn't maybe be as interesting to some people in character. But again, I'm a nerd, man. So asking me if I'm interested in it is probably, you know, not a good depiction for, I guess, or not a good representation for the other fans for sure.
Someone made, I can't remember who it was, but they said, was the reason that Ant-Man wasn't in the Infinity War movie, the first one, was because because he's so small, he could have just, you know, went into Thanos' ass and then he grew big and boom, there you go. No more Thanos.
They were done with the movie. Maybe that's the reason. I've literally never thought about that. That's pretty that's intriguing right there, man. Yeah, you could have just, I guess that's one way to do it. You just fly into him and then just make yourself bigger, and then I guess he blows up from the inside. That's weird, but yeah, I've never thought about that. Whoever thought that up is maybe on to something, because yeah, Ant-Man is too overpowered for Thanos, man.
Or on something.
On to something, or on, like man said, or on something. Yeah, one of the two, or both, maybe.
Yeah, there'd be no movie, I guess, if he did that.
True.
Are we going to talk about episode 9?
Yeah, we can talk about episode 9.
When the feminists finally defeat the patriarchy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
So wait a minute. I want to hear Scott talk about episode 8.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna go see episode 9. I had to force my wife to not get up and leave in episode 8. As soon as, and she's more of a Star Wars dork than I am, even, and I'm pretty bad. I'm the worst, but she's worse than me. But as soon as they did that thing with Princess Leia, the wife was like, "That's it, I'm out of here." She got up to leave, and I was like, "No, sit down." And then I wish I'd left with her. It just got worse and worse and worse from there. And you know what? As much as I think that guy Ryan Johnson should kill himself,
Oh my God.
And Ryan, if you're watching, you're better off dead. No, man, it's all J.J. Abrams' fault in the first place, because J.J. Abrams ruined 7 so bad by just making it a ripoff of 4 and having no story to tell, and then putting Luke Skywalker on that island because he didn't have a reason. He was afraid. He said he thought if he brought Luke Skywalker into 7 that would overshadow the Rey character, and he didn't want to do that, so he decided to just stick him on the island. So his movie made no sense at all. So then Ryan Johnson comes in, and he said this. He goes, well, there's got to be like an outline of what's supposed to happen over the next couple of episodes, like vaguely anyway, right? And they said, no, there's no story. They're just, you take it from here and do what you want. So he's like, well, why is Luke on the island? And the only reason he could come up with is Luke Skywalker is a bitch ass. Luke Skywalker now is a punk. He's now a crybaby, and he's hiding because he's sad. And now we're just going to roll with that. And then we'll bring in Laura Dern to be an admiral in a purple evening gown in order to, and then the whole rest of the movie makes no sense. The whole entire plot of the movie, the main plot of the movie is a slow speed chase. See The Aviator with DiCaprio, and he's playing Howard Hughes.
Yeah, good movie.
And they show how he was trying to make this airplane movie, but they realize the airplanes look really stupid unless there's clouds to fly by to show the speed, you know? So he hung out there in the desert for like 3 or 4 months till there were some clouds so he could finally get a shot of these planes flying by some clouds. Well, so what they do in Star Wars 8, they made the whole movie where there's no clouds, there's no nothing. It's just a slow speed chase. You can't even tell they're moving at all. And the whole thing makes no sense. There's a scene where he says, call back the TIE fighters because we can't protect them from here. Huh? They got 7 Star Destroyers chasing 1 rebel ship. They got 7 Star Destroyers full of TIE fighters, which is, I don't know, 700 TIE fighters. And at the beginning, they're already tearing the ship to shreds. But then they call them back. Why? Well, because the script said that they had to. So that's why. And then, you know, in fact, when Princess Leia got blown out the airlock thing, I was like, awesome. That is, because he was going to kill his mom, and then he decides not to, but then his wingmen go ahead and take the shot anyway, and they kill her. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, this is so cool. How are they going to, you know, figure out what to do with Carrie Fisher being dead? I know. We'll just, blam, we'll kill her in the first 5 minutes, and we'll just cut out the rest of her story from 8, and awesome. What balls. What a great way to do it. And then they have her come back to life and do this Mary Poppins thing and fly back. And then why? She's in a coma for the rest of the movie anyway. She's not even in the rest of the movie anyway. That's all they had to do was have a little bit of courage. Go ahead and kill her in the first few minutes. That would have been a great choice. How do we handle Carrie Fisher being dead? We kill Princess Leia. That's how. And we make it where her boy sort of kind of does it, you know? And that would have been at least something. But no. And then just every part of that movie after that is just the worst goddamn thing that ever happened. And so what can you expect from 9? The same guy that completely ruined 7 and set up this idiot Johnson to ruin 8 is now going to come in and do 9. So does anybody think it's going to be any better? I'm not even going to go see it. I mean, I might see the cam version on the Pirate Bay when it comes out, but I'm not going to see it. I'm so pissed off at that thing. God, how do you take Luke Skywalker? I mean, you got to do something interesting with the character, but you're going to make him a punk ass bitch now? Luke Skywalker. He's Luke Skywalker. Anyway, all right, I'm done. Sorry.
That was good stuff.
No, I mean, Colin.
It ain't right.
Directed 9. I mean, even though he's director of, you know, Jurassic World, but at least have someone else do it.
Yeah.
But it's really George Lucas's fault for selling it to Disney.
True.
Because now look how many movies there are: Solo, Jar Jar Binks, Admiral Akbar, that guy on the left in that Starfighter. He has his own origin story.
Well, the guy that ruined 8. They gave him a 3-movie deal. He's going to make a whole new. They gave him a contract to do 3 movies, a whole saga.
Oh, God.
The guy that made the worst one out of all of them. And the new ones are way worse than the prequels. Because you know what? As bad as the prequels are, and George Lucas obviously botched them.
Right.
But you have to at least respect the fact that, hey, that's the history of the galaxy, man. What are you going to do? That's what really happened. And George Lucas, you know, showed it to us, and you might not like it, but at least it is what it is. But the sequels, 7 and 8, well, that's just some crap that J.J. Abrams wrote. There's no reason that, you know, you have to accept it as really part of the story at all. It's just stupid. It's horrible.
Man.
Horrible. And the prequels did suck. But still.
I fell asleep on every single one of them in the theater. I like literally there were parts where I would just fall asleep because it just there was.
Well, you know, the real problem with the prequels was how great they could have been, right? Telling the story of, you know, obviously the fall of Anakin becoming Darth Vader, but then also the fall of the Republic as it's not conquered and overthrown by the enemy. The Republic becomes the Empire through war. And then at the same time, you have the Sith, which is like this evil skull and bones secret conspiracy behind the scenes, manipulating everybody and making the Jedi actually conquer the galaxy for the Empire, and then stabbing them in the back and killing them all and all that. So there's so much to work with there to really show how the Republic becomes the Empire, how a quote unquote democracy becomes a tyranny, a dictatorship, and a police state. But then they just blew it. So I mean, that's where I got my politics like this in the first place, man. I still remember asking my mom when I was like 6 years old, what's the Senate? And she says to me something about, you know, well, something like where people, they send, you know, the best of them to go and decide what the laws should be, or, you know, whatever, our representatives to go and decide what the. So what does it mean then that the emperor has just dissolved the Senate permanently? Well, yeah, it's because he has enough power that he doesn't have to listen to anybody anymore. He's the full dictator now, and this and that. Why is Darth Vader the Attorney General? Simply because he can crush your throat from here. That's the only reason why. It's not because anybody trusts him with the authority. It's only because you can't do a damn thing about it. And that's the difference between, you know, a republic and liberty. And I know we're all anarchists here, but, you know, we're talking 6th grade level libertarian or 6th grade level libertarianism here.
Right.
And then the dark times when people give up on liberty and let a tyranny rise to replace it. And that's a huge part of why I am the way I am in the first place, is I got my political indoctrination from George Lucas before I ever learned about George Washington and the cherry tree and all of that crap.
Isn't that intriguing though? You know what I mean? Because we talk about, you know, we talk about that all the time. I know anybody that follows my work, I talk about the art and how that will definitely, these youngsters, man, it'll hit a switch, you know, in them, even if they don't realize it, and maybe when they're older, you know what I mean, they start to like, oh man, that happened. And I remember seeing that movie, and I was asking moms questions about it and stuff like that, and it makes sense now. And this is why I'm always urging like libertarians to be like arts, why I do music and stuff like that. Because I'm like, that stuff matters, bro. Like you might not think it matters, man, but that stuff matters, man. Because you never know, just something can click. That sort of representation can click for a youngster, man, and get them at least down the road, rather, hopefully before they, those I guess those professors get a hold of them, you know what I mean? But they at least starting to think critically about some of the things. So I'm always urging these libertarians to get in arts, be it movies, depictions, or cartoons, like my buddy Shaine and stuff, and then or music or anything like that, because I really feel like that's the part of the culture war that's gonna, kind of, I guess, tip the scale, if it's ever gonna tip in our lifetime.
Right. Yeah, that's why I regret that I have no artistic ability or talent whatsoever, because I know that for all my interviews and all my articles and whatever, that doesn't amount to anything compared to one good hook in a song that really gets people defiant,
Absolutely. That's huge, man. And that's one of the things that we do. That's one of the things we talk about, man, me and my band, and why I got into sort of doing it, I guess, in the avenue that I'm doing it in now, because of that, man. It's just because I also think about how me growing up and me looking at my influences and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I got a lot of influence from the music that I was listening to at the time. You know what I mean? Maybe I could try to utilize that to actually mean something, do something meaningful for where I'm at from a political scale. But yeah, I mean, I think it's whether it be through the articles, through the podcasting and stuff like that. Obviously, I think some of that stuff is important. You know what I mean? But the art representation. It's just we have. I don't want to say it's oversaturated with people that do podcasts and stuff like that, because there's a lot of people that do a lot of good work. You know what I mean? That's necessary. Our good buddy Tom Woods. I'm always sending stuff to or people his way that maybe were brought in by my music, and they're like, hey, you got anybody? I listen to podcasts when I'm at work or something like that. You got anybody you recommend that sort of talks about some of the stuff you talking music? I'm like, oh yeah, go listen to Scott Horton, go listen to Tom. But that stuff is necessary, you know what I mean? But we have like little to no representation from an artsy standpoint, man, and we need it. It's just so necessary, man. It is. I don't say that because I do it. I'm just saying that because, I'm sort of the lone wolf out here, man. And among a bunch of, because we don't tour with, I would love to do tours with libertarian musicians that are also known. But, when we tour, we're touring with a bunch of, leftist status sort of.
Well, I grew up on Public Enemy, and I think people consider them.
I was going to say the same thing. Fight the power.
Exactly.
People consider them to be leftist, but I mean, if you read the lyrics or listen closely to Chuck D, I mean, especially "Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back," that's a very anti-government album. Everything in there is about the state.
Absolutely. 100%. But that's the part. You know what I mean? That's necessary. And I know those guys. Those guys, we share the same booking agent, Public Enemy, and so it's like, but it's so important, man. And because I hear all the time, and this is why I do it. We get messages all the time, people that come to us after shows that say, well, I didn't know about sort of this concept before you guys said something about it, or more so like, because we're so big on the visual aspect, but with music videos is why we have like 10 music videos out there. But we make sure that if we are going to have some sort of message of liberty, we have that depicted from a visual standpoint. I think our most popular song is obviously Self-Ownership. But with the whole scenes of the people, all those people protesting, and then that one guy coming up to him and saying, well, y'all are protesting, but y'all not really attacking the source of where these sorts of issues that you have, and that is the state and its power and its monopoly, its territorial monopoly. And people are like, oh, I never thought about it like that until they saw it like that. You know what I mean? So this is why it's so necessary. This is why it's so necessary to have those sorts of sort of artists. And I think a lot of people are scared more so because of, I guess, that they don't think it's a market for it. And that's what I hope that we had done, and having such a successful first album, and that's people that'll listen. I mean, you still have to be a good musician. Don't think that. I think some people maybe think that, oh, I can just talk liberty and it's not gonna work like that. You still have to be worth a damn. You know what I mean? You gotta put some music out there that people are going to be able to digest and people are going to enjoy it. But you can put that message in there. There's a market for even if you aren't beating them over the head with it with every song, you know, even just you as an individual, because you use your platform, because essentially what we do, yeah, every song is not Liberty themed, but you know, when I use that platform that I'm given, if I'm doing an interview for Alternative Press or something like that, or Metal Injection or something like that, I'm always sure to let people know where I'm at with it from a libertarian standpoint. So, and that in itself, that platform that music gives us is a big thing, because I look at the big artists like the Beyoncés of the world, Jay-Z's of the world, bug dancing for these Democrats and stuff like that. That stuff matters to these kids, man. We can say it doesn't, but that stuff matters. They're seeing their idols, the people that they know, but they don't usually even know who their senators are. You know what I mean? They don't know who their representatives are or anything like that, but they can read your Beyonce like lyrics back to front in terms of an album. You know what I mean? So they will take heed to what that individual is saying, what that musician is saying. And just because they're in a position and they're that cultural artistic representation for them. So it's important, man. I mean, the libertarians, they need that sort of that we need more of you out there, man. So if you do have that sort of talent, it is we've proven, if nothing else, that there's most definitely a market for that. You just gotta do it and be all right with it.
Well, you got to be talented too.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of bands that there are a lot of people who are right thinking, but they don't have the talent to do it. You know, when I think of bands that, like, if I'm driving in the car and I want to put something on that is completely anti-establishment, if it's not you, I'm putting on Rage, yeah,
leftist, yeah,
The Exploited,
Bad Religion, all those guys.
Yeah, Ice-T's Ice-T's Freedom of Speech album.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's not so much leftist. That I mean, Ice has never really been, and I never understood how rap could be leftist. They had to all be anarchists.
Yeah,
how could you not? You know? Yeah, especially. Right. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx back when rap was being born, and you know, it was more about an attitude. It was more about, I mean, really fuck authority.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it became about fuck authority, but that authority needs to give us free shit.
Right.
I mean,
and that especially fuck that authority when they have an R next to their name. Maybe not as much when there's a D next to them. You know what I mean? So it's rap is a weird thing, man. And that sort of, I mean, I don't want to get too into these conspiracies about it, but I just seriously think that a lot of, you know, politicians, there was some sort of grand scheme, not just politicians, but leftists in general, that use that to sort of hip hop, you know what I mean, to obviously influence a generation of people to adopt the wrong, because, you know, like at its core, you know what I mean, like if you listen to even just when the rap stuff first started, I mean, you're in the East Coast, so you definitely you would know the sort of approach that it was, because even that storytelling and all back, you know, I'm talking even pre-Slick Rick, you know what I mean, storytelling elements, lyricism was what it was about. And even when it was, you know, it was about telling stories even of the environment, it was never about praising it. And that's where I guess it got weird for me, because even when it was anti-establishment, or even when it was telling the story of maybe what a lot of these people are experiencing in their own neighborhoods, it was never about really praising what it was. And there was this crossover, I would say, going into like the early 90s, where that sort of toxic behavior became praised. You know what I mean? It was like, well, yeah, whether it's talking about people in my neighborhood dying, I'm bragging about the people in my neighborhood dying. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, that's, I just feel like it's unfortunate that it took that route, because it influenced the hip hop, that culture sort of influenced a generation of bangers like myself, growing up listening to this stuff and banging on people because I heard, you know, my favorite artists were doing it, and it was like, oh yeah, and the excuse was always, well, we're just rapping about what we see, and I'm like, yeah, they was doing that late in the 80s and stuff too, you know what I mean? But it was never about it was like idolizing this sort of self-destructive and these self-inflicted sort of wounds in these communities, you know, because these people are now, you know, people are essentially praising, terrorizing these neighborhoods, you know what I mean? And that's unfortunate, man. That's something that, from a personal tip, that I got just a huge problem with the direction that rap took, because that's where it's at now. I mean, it's to the point to where the lyrical folks, the storytelling folks, I mean, when was the last album that was like that, where you had people that were, the last one I could really think of was probably Miseducation, you know, Lauryn Hill. I mean, that was just so about, it was about talking about that sort of stuff, but being conscious enough to understand that, all right, well, I can also demonize the self-destructive sort of behavior while talking about what's going on. So she had that Everything Is Everything song and all of those sorts of records that she was dropping that was so putting people on knowledge, but she wasn't praising that sort of that toxic behavior, which is all I hear in the rap. Who? Tech Nine?
Mortal Technique.
Oh, Mortal Technique. It's all right. You know what I mean? Like he's okay. I think obviously he's a leftist. You know what I mean? But I dig that he is, and that's what he's known for. He's known for being a conscious rap, and that I can respect, even out of people that I may disagree with fundamentally. You know, I can respect sort of that person that's bringing some sort of consciousness to talking about even some of these issues. What again, going back to what I was saying, I don't know, I start cringing when I hear these artists that are more so praising the sort of self-destructive the behavior, whether it be the violence, the drug usage, you know what I mean, smashing women, you know what I mean, like that sort of approach. That, and these are things that you could point to, like directly point to, that are like, all right, this is toxic behavior that is really taking a knock on our communities. If somebody is a rapper and has a following that is, I can, even if they're just being conscious about things, I can most definitely respect it, even if they're not, you know, where I'm at from I guess political standpoint, and you know, because most of them are that do that are leftists. But at least they're not, you know, idolizing, you know, gang violence and people terrorizing communities and stuff like that, and or, you know, which essentially is just doing nothing but breeding a bunch of a generation of people that grow up and do the same damn thing.
Well, you know how you can tell how, okay, to me, it's Public Enemy, Ice-T, and KRS-One.
Oh, most definitely KR.
Okay. You bring, I quoted KRS-One on Twitter today, and everybody ignored me. The line about you'll never have justice on stolen land. You know, and you bring those three up to like young people, and it's like, oh yeah, we know who they are. You know, that's nice, that's quaint, that's quaint. It's like, did you listen to the message? Did you listen to what they're saying? Nah. It's not about that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all it's about now.
Yeah, no, but it's funny, man. It's funny you mentioned those guys, because I remember, and you know, I don't know if you remember, I talked about this on my stream not too long ago, and how there was I can remember two big songs that were done by it was both R&B artists. You had R&B artists, they did theirs, and then you had the rap artists that did theirs. I don't know if you remember when KRS won, who else was on that? Kool Moe Dee was on that track, and it was you know, so they were talking about basically stop the violence and stuff like that. It was a whole track with some of the biggest names in rap that were on that. And one of my favorite lines by Kool Moe Dee in that song is like, I never ever ran from the Ku Klux Klan. I shouldn't have to run from a black man. You know what I mean? And that stuck to me. But you had that, and also called Black Men United R&B, but all the top R&B guys. I mean, from Brian McKnight to, at the time, you know, Tevin Campbell, R. Kelly, you know, all those. They did a song talking about, you know, basic black empowerment and stuff like that. And I'm like, that both of those happened around the same. The R&B guys did it maybe years later, but those happen around the same year. I was like, I feel like rappers now, egos are too big, where you got all the top artists in the game, the rap artists in the game, to do a sort of positive a song like that, I mean, we're talking about on the upward almost 20 some artists were getting on these tracks, or at least at the very least a part of it. You would not, it's unheard of now. You know, you would never hear about, like, again, all these artists. They may do a song together. A couple of them may do a song, but and that song's just going to be the same old garbage that they're spewing out anyway. But I'm talking about the top artists, because this is what happened. Those are the top artists, top rap artists, top R&B artists that were doing these tracks. And you think about Drake level, I don't know, Kendrick, all those guys did a track like that, and they were talking about maybe empowering black people, stop killing each other, it's just unheard of right now. And I just really don't think I think it's more of an ego thing, but it just separates sort of those generations of where we're at, definitely with rap now, as in comparison to what it was back then. And it's sad. It's most definitely sad, because like I said, I believe that these youngsters are so, from an artistic standpoint, just really they cling to that sort of stuff. And I can speak from experience. I was one of the top young rappers in Dallas when I was a teenager, and all I rapped about was fighting. I was banging at the time, so all I rapped about was fighting. And I can remember vividly, we have a song, you can go look it up, called "Bring the Beef." Right now, it has hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. It's an old song. I did that. I was like 16 years old, and I remember I would perform this song in front of clubs of literally thousands of people, or even teenage clubs. As soon as we couldn't even get to my verse, was the second verse. By the time we got to my second verse, people were beating each other up in the crowd, because we would talk, it was banging. So we, talking about, I had a little line, I'm blood, I had a little line, kind of taking a knock at people that claim blue and stuff like that. So you get all these people, what's up, cuz, what's up, blood, in the crowd, and they start beefing on each other. And it's like, I'm looking at that just because of the music, right? Just because of the music, they were moving like that, and that's just really how much of a hold this sort of has on some of these youngsters. To say that it doesn't have any sort of influence, or to say that it's just music, is just an outright lie. And it can be most definitely used for good. It was used for good. It's just now definitely from a rap and hip hop standpoint, it's toxic, man. It's toxic these days.
Well, Scott grew up in skater culture, so yeah, that was political, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, man. All my friends, we all listened to rap mostly, and that was junior high era. That was right when Eazy and NWA were coming out and that kind of shit. But I was mostly into Public Enemy and always Beastie Boys.
Oh yeah,
they're my number one, and they're barely political at all. But yeah. And then honestly, man, there was a kid that moved to the neighborhood from Minnesota who was like, "You guys listen to rap? All my skater friends listen to punk rock."
Punk rock, yeah.
And then he played like the weakest, bubblegum pop, whiny boy punk rock. And I was like, if this is punk rock, I hate it. Like, I don't know what it was, but it was like worse than the Dead Milkmen or something, just. And I was like, well, if this is punk rock, I don't want to hear it. So I didn't even really start listening to punk until much later. I started listening to Black Flag and Fear and whatever else after that. But
Bad Brains.
You know what? And then when grunge and all that stuff came out in like 91, I was that's it. I just listened to nothing but Check Your Head for 10 years. I don't want to hear any of this crap. Alice and Shaine, all this crap. I had no tolerance for that. And I liked Rage. I listened to Rage in the 90s too. But I basically spent the entire 1990s listening to just Check Your Head.
Well, isn't it funny that like every libertarian who's like near our age owns like 2 or 3 Bad Brains albums?
Yeah, I got all the Bad Brains now, but I didn't start even listening to Bad Brains till I was in my 20s, man. I didn't even know about them. I thought punk rock was just a bunch of whiny crap. I never heard any good shit, Yeah,
man. That's funny, man. Like, as I grew up thankfully my mother was well, I grew up on like 70s soul and, Motown music and stuff like that. But she at least introduced, it was Beastie Boys that got me into rock, because they had the rap element. I remember hearing Sabotage, and I was like, holy crap, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And also with Run DMC doing those collaborations with like Aero Smith and stuff like that, I just thought that was the coolest thing. So it got me into, I'm younger than you guys, so I didn't start coming up in the like on that sort of stuff like in the late 90s. So it was Rage. I remember listening to Rage and stuff like that, but I came up, talking that prime era of soaking that music was like from 98 to 2002. And that was when like, obviously Lincoln that came out. And then, that was when System of a Down had sort of emerged and stuff like that. And so I was in the middle. I was kind of more so in the middle stuff. And when I was listening to more of like the I guess the punkish stuff, it was like Sum 41, Bad Religion, stuff like that. I was really in Bad Religion, but it was more so metal. And obviously, like as I got older, that's when
I like Poison Idea a lot. They're not really that political, but that's what I like to skate to is And US Bombs, Dwayne Peters was one of the original like second generation vert skaters, and he's got a great punk rock band. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to US Bombs, but they're great.
Yeah,
I got a good System of a Down story. I went to New York in 2002. I hadn't been in New York since like 95, and my aunt still lives up in Co-op City in the Bronx. So I step off the train, grab a cab, shoot on over to Co-op, get out of the cab. A donk comes riding by, 4 black dudes in it with System of a Down, crank it.
That's incredible.
I was like, are you kidding? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Isn't dog? I'm telling you, man, it's so much from that era. It was, I would say, and this is why I was such a big deal. You saw like definitely like black artists being so trippy about the passing away of Chester Bennington, because I mean, black folks are pretty much open about the fact that it was the ones that do listen to metal, the ones that do listen to rock based music. It was Linkin Park that got them into it, because it was digestible, but also with Mike Shinoda being an actual, like Mike Shinoda isn't an average rapper. He's a good rapper. You know what I mean? Like you could take some of his bars and put it in like, it doesn't matter what, if you heard some of his like Fort Minor stuff, you can hear that he's a legit spitter. You know what I mean? So people respected that. And that was what, for a lot of us, remember, definitely people my age, like, 20, late 20s, like that was like prime age when we were coming out, that was when they dropped Hybrid Theory. That's a diamond selling album. And that's what got us into it. And it was so many black folks. Because I was by that age, I was already on it. You know what I mean? Because like I said, Beastie Boys and stuff like that. But I remember my buddies who were just straight rap stuff. I remember I could slide them Linkin Park and they would jam that. They were like legit, like, oh man, this is good stuff. You know what I mean? And it's sort of weird because when you think about rock, the history of rock, I always think about where the hell, like, because I also if you were black, you get made fun of a lot of times if you listen to rock music from certain sectors. But if you look at the history of rock, definitely metal, you know what I mean, and how that came from blues, and whether it be the Chuck Berrys of the world, and the first sort of metal. Like, those influences were all trying to mimic like Muddy Waters and, covering Muddy Waters and covering black blues band, because metal came from that. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I tell people all the time, like, but black people essentially started rock and roll music. Like, why is it so weird? Or why is some, because they think it was this white music, because now obviously it's white dominated. But I always think it's intriguing that sort of when it happened, that divide sort of happened, because early on in rock, you had the, Lil Riches of the world, the Chuck Berrys of the world, that were essentially rock and roll artists. And then the top rock and roll artists were all mimicking what a lot of black artists like Elvis and all those guys, they were mimicking what the black,
Led Zeppelin, that was all exactly just trying to copy.
Yeah.
Especially they're doing everything they could to sound like they're from Louisiana.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, all of the songs that they would, I mean, that's pretty much, all those songs that they were covering like, blues artists. And like I said, I got the Muddy Waters and all of that stuff. And it's sort of weird, but it's weird. Like, now we see it, the rock and roll is hardly any. That's why I'm sticking out like a sore thumb, because I'm black and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs all the time. And but essentially black folks had been a part of it early on. But like you said, I mean, like it was the Rolling Stones, even the Beatles. I mean, like all those guys were trying to mimic essentially black blues and rock sort of artists, when they first came out. Elvis probably being the most prominent one that would do that, you know what I mean? And I mean, even Buddy Holly, like, it's so many of them, they'll admit it. Like, you can go ask some of the guys now, like, who do you think you, like, Mick Jagger is no he'll tell you straight up, like, yeah, we were trying to be what the black blues artists. We were trying to do what they were doing.
Dog, that was a Bessie Smith song.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
You had all these guitar players who were playing all this electric guitar, and everybody's talking about B.B. King, and no one's talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, you go to Memphis. Anyone who loves music got to go to Memphis once, and go to the Stag, and go to the go to the what's the museum? Not the Sun Studios. What's the other one? I can't remember. Too much vodka.
Yeah,
you know,
most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. But no, it's so intriguing to me. And like a lot of the blues rock, sort of bluesy, gospel-y, because that's all. I mean, dude, if you listen to blues and gospel, early gospel, it's the same. That's what, like, the whole 12-bar blues, like, all it is got, like, I hear even riffage from like songs that, you know, my favorite guitarist, I mean, I'm from Oak Cliff, you know what I mean? So my favorite guitarist is Stevie Ray Vaughan. But, you know, hearing Stevie in some of his songs, like, these are gospel tracks, bro. Like, these are literally the gospel music, you know what I mean? And it's so intriguing and it's sad to me, because a lot of people, definitely my age, they don't know anything about this, man. It's all foreign. It's all foreign to them. But I think that it's a gem. It's a treat for anybody that, like you said, even man, I was in Memphis for a little bit, even just to learn the history of some of this, definitely even rock music that's being performed today. And you see how it all branches, like metal being, to me, the primary one, because that I can almost pinpoint certain tracks, you know what I mean, from Muddy Waters and how that turned into, you know, like you said, Led Zeppelin, and that Led Zeppelin turned into, you know, this, and, you know, that it sort of kept evolving to where it is now. But a lot of that stuff came from a lot of what black artists, what gospel artists, what blues artists were doing, and that's where the sort of origins of rock sort of came from. But a lot of folks don't know it, which is why it's foreign to them, and they'll go say, it's a black person doing, oh, you performing that white people music. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, what do you mean? It's interesting, though. It's interesting.
Man, y'all listen to a lot of history of music and all that, and then Nico and I listen to the, you know, dubstep.
I used to play in a band. I play guitar. I play bass. I was the lead singer. So, I mean, music has been a huge part of my life. And, I mean, it always will be.
Absolutely.
You know, it's always a struggle. I want to listen to my podcast, and I get in the car and I go to put music on, and I'm like, I got to listen to the podcast. This is what I'm about now. But, you know, it's like, oh man, I really want to put Agnostic Front on.
Oh man.
There's some anti-government punk rock right there.
Oh my goodness, man. Or how about Reagan Youth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's Reagan Youth today, actually.
Yeah. That was funny, man. So I saw that. I had to repost that tweet that you posted about or that meme that said you know, you would like had that chick in front of that punk rock artist. You're like, what do you mean 30 years from now this guy's gonna be all about big government? I was like, this is amazing, because it's just so true. Because this is like even the like the guys even from our eras, like like I said, I'm a little younger, you know. All of them are essentially for big, even like the rages of the world. I mean, you remember what's the name? Tom. I remember he was doing that. He did some benefit for like 15 an hour, like minimum wage. I was like, I know y'all were commies, but what the hell is this? Like, what do you mean 15? And like, what is this? You know what I mean? But it's so weird because even the bands that are in my scene, you know, the metalcore and post-hardcore scene, who claim to be, you know, they're always thought of as these anti-establishment, and all it is, it's anti-republicanism. It's never been anti. It's not anti, more so establishment. It's more so because they. That's why Bernie was so popular among our culture, among metalcore, like hardcore, post-hardcore musician. Bernie was that guy that did it for me. That's why I was attacking him so much, because I was like, that was all I was around. A bunch of Bernie shirt leftist musicians, you know what I mean? And my genre was like, man, y'all bogus. Just so he's one of the he's an admitted big government guy, and you mean to tell me, you know, it's all about anti-stat? It's all bogus. But it was so funny. I saw that meme. I was like, yeah, it's so true, man. These guys they are for big government at the end of the day, man.
I kind of can't blame anybody who they think they're leftist just because they hate right wingers more, or they're a right winger just because they hate leftists more.
Yeah.
Like whatever you guys are, I must be the opposite of that, and that always makes sense to me.
Yeah,
you know, but they don't know that there's an alternative. You don't have to buy into any of this kind of thing at all.
Absolutely,
you know. But
it's that sort of one of the other type of deal. And this is why what's that band that came straight from the path? I used to be a huge fan of these guys because they mix sort of kind of. It's like they're basically a modern Beastie, and they're doing and they had that song called. They let me know where they were at. It's so corny. Called it was like "Good Night, Alt Right" was the name of the song. I know what he's talking about. I was like, Jesus Christ! And it's funny. Alternative press is all because all I said was "sigh." I tweeted. I was like, "What the fuck?" Because this is the corniest. It was the corniest song. And alt press is all tweeting me. Is quoting me on that like it's just some like they literally quote me saying "sigh" straight from the pad. Because I was like, "What? This is garbage." Like this is like the song was bad and it was just so corny in itself, the song itself. And I'm like, you can be anti government all day long, even be anti right all day long without being a fucking cornball. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it was, because they were trying too hard. But like I said, at the end of the day, it was all they themselves, same idea. They were burnt. You know, some of those individual members were Bernie supporting. I remember during the election, supporting posting all stuff that came from Bernie Sanders, and it's like, man, like these guys they don't understand it. They do not, even the stuff that they're saying, like they might say they were good. Like I remember, like Straight from the Path has a song where they're talking about basically, you know, talking about the laws and, you know, law boys doing these criminal things, saying that they're individuals are not supposed to be above this sort of concept. I'm like, man, this is good stuff. Why can't you extend that to the logical conclusion and apply that to, you know, who the hell is going to be enforcing Bernie's law in the event that I say I don't want to pay taxes to fund his whimsical ideas of universal health care or education or anything like that? They're going to send those same goons, on me just because you think that. And this is what it really, when I think punk and I think hardcore, I think metalcore, certainly in the modern age, this is why I think is all it is, essentially anti-republicanism, because at the end of the day, they will support these social policies that will have even the same result, but they don't extend the logic of what they're saying in their songs, even when they're like, oh man, I'm anti-government, anti this police force, yada yada, which, you know, that's an easy position to take, but they're like, well, we can still use this police force. It's okay, you know, when it's for things that I support, because it's all about caring, you know, helping the poor, helping the kids and stuff like that. But they don't understand that, you know, like the Eric Garners of the world, these taxations, you know, you can get taxed, you can get choked out for selling loose cigarettes that are untaxed. You know what I mean? So it ain't no law that exists that they won't enforce with that sort of violence that you're griping and bitching and moaning about, but they don't think of it.
Yeah, you can tell that's part of what was good about PE was, you know, Chuck D had a lot of that, and I guess Griff and the rest of them, they had a lot of that Nation of Islam, which is, you know, pretty right wing in a lot of ways, and is, you know, based on self-reliance and self-empowerment. And also Chuck was old enough too that he remembered the civil rights era. Like he grew up like kind of right after that, and he remembered that, yeah, it was the FBI that killed Martin Luther King. It wasn't IBM. It was the federal government that was the #1 killer and destroyer of black leaders. And so, you know, these people are not your friend. How could you possibly get fooled into that? You know, and so it ain't like he was ever really a right winger like any kind of Republican, but he was inoculated away from that kind of leftist stuff. Yeah, and that's important, man. The hand coming from the left because you can't trust it and all that. You know?
Right. No, he was, and that's the difference. You know, I talk about hoteps all the time now and how they're the only like seeming like the black like youngsters that they understand it because they're all about the self-reliance and stuff like that. It's stuff you can always tell the difference between like a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X sort of influence, because Martin Luther was this sort of integrationists, call them what it is. It's integrationists. That's why, Civil Rights Act, yada, yada. And Malcolm was like, screw all of that. You know what I mean? Like, well, how about we just use our $1 billion in buying power to do whatever with our own communities, instead of expecting them to treat us like they treat other white people, essentially. Let's do our own thing. And you can always see it seems like the difference between those two groups, because those groups that he to Malcolm and what he is saying, they're more about like, self-determination. They're more about doing what they can for their own communities, policing their own communities and stuff like that, as opposed to the integrationist types, because they're like, all right, well, we just got to use the state to do good. You know what I mean? And it's, it never works out that way. And this is why personally, I can take what Martin Luther King Jr. did and what Malcolm did, but if I had to choose between the two, I always am more influenced by Malcolm because of that. He's saying some of the things that a lot of youngsters will say right now, and they'll get called these negative, these derogatory names, because some of his stuff on black economics, this is even pre-Malcolm. Some of his stuff like on is some of the best work, some of the best work, because he was essentially. He's saying you can look all of this stuff up. Not all the stuff he was saying again about white liberals and how it starts. Funny how all that stuff came into fruition, right? He's saying that these people are going to use your leaders to control you. You know what I mean? They're going to use your leaders the civil rights and the leaders to control you. And this it came into fruition because we see right now you can't find really a top head honcho black leader that's not essentially in the pockets of the Democrats or buck dancing for them when it comes election time or speaking big narratives and stuff like that. It's so funny because he wasn't saying anything it's groundbreaking then, but a lot of people now somebody said it. I guess you could put Malcolm's quotes, and maybe that's a little test that I might put for my audience, put a Malcolm quote in there and not say that Malcolm said it. You know what I mean? And be like, what would they say? But probably call me, coon, house nigga, all these negative names. But I'm like, well, it's Malcolm that said it, because he was I remember one of my favorite speeches that he did. He was talking about the black folks, obviously, about black economics, and he was like, yeah, man, we don't need to be worrying about how they think of us, because look at these like the Irish that came over here with nothing. You know what I mean? Or look at these Asians that came over here with nothing. But what they did is that they pulled their resources and they started businesses. They had factories. They had all of these different things in which were essentially growing their communities. And they weren't. And he's like he's telling that black people, literal words that he said, is like, you are not in a moral position to expect to be, given a handout to these, or be forced into these people's kitchens. When you have all of this buying power and you're not building any industry, because you're so dead set on trying to get them to like integrate you. And he was like, that's why Malcolm wasn't an integrationist. Malcolm wasn't like, he was just like, I want you to get off my back, leave me the hell alone. Like, I don't want you to like force people to accept me. One of his things that he was saying, he was like, look, man, if a white person becomes my friend, that's a camaraderie. That's a positive thing. But if you have to force it's snake stuff. If you have to force that white person to accept me, whether it be by way of law. And this is why he was so much against sort of these sort of white liberals, because that's essentially what they were doing. It was like this fraud sort of friendship. It wasn't authentic, where there were white people that were trying to help blacks and stuff like that voluntarily. And that was the word that he used, like voluntarily. But what government is doing, what maybe the Civil Rights Act is doing, is essentially trying to force them to have to accept us. And really, at the end of the day, you're really causing more attention in that, because you're not allowing the people that don't want to be with these people to get the hell out. You know what I mean? Or leave people. That's why these sort of conflicts kept arising with sit-ins and whack stuff like that, where people were going into private businesses and saying like that were like in the business owner, like, I don't want to sell to you, and I'm gonna sit out. Think how whack that is. I'm gonna sit in your business and force you to serve me when you don't want to serve me. But there was a difference between that and you look at things like let's say Dred Scott, V. Sanford, or any of those sorts of Supreme Court laws, which essentially authorize the state separating black from white, saying that you had to segregate them, like the Louisiana Boxcar Act, which popped a lot of that stuff off when it said that even the business is funny with that particular story where the Louisiana Boxcar Act and the actual company, they didn't want to separate blacks from whites because it cost them boxcars. They had to because it's expensive to be racist. You know, all right. If I gotta separate you guys, right, I gotta purchase more boxcars rather than putting y'all in the same damn boxcar. I gotta separate you guys. And it's funny, the original company, and this is to verify all of this, the original company in that said case didn't want to. They didn't want to. They actually fought the law itself, and in which the Louisiana law was saying that you had to segregate blacks from whites. And you know, but even the company itself, the white-owned company, was like, we do not want to do that, not because of necessarily the racism per se. It was because it's going to cost us money to do that. You know what I mean? But and that's the difference between, because that's the state, obviously, and for us, that's a rotten thing, right? State separating races and stuff like that. As opposed to that sort of integration. And then what happened is there was a negative effect, and then the state said, you know, we're going to force you guys to integrate, instead of just saying, all right, we're going to get rid of these damn laws, which is the easy thing to do, get rid of damn laws. We're going to let whoever wants to integrate, who wants to separate. And that's what caused a whole lot of tension. I would say unnecessary tension, because it did that sort of conflict was overshadowed overshadowed the people that were trying to, again, white folks and black folks that acted voluntarily a lot throughout the South. You didn't hear too much about that. You always heard about the conflict because of, again, the forced integration efforts, and such an unfortunate thing, man. But you can always see, going back to the point, the difference from those that took, you know, I guess Malcolm's words to hearts more than they took Martin Luther King Jr. It's a very interesting thing.
In the end, the FBI killed them both.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So yeah, then they you know, knocked them both. So I mean, anybody, it would seem logical to be like, you know what, maybe the state doesn't have what's in our best interest, because they're killing our leaders. They're killing our most influential leaders, the guys with the most power. They're killing them off. And they're using essentially the power that is giving to them by being agents of the state. Essentially, they're using that power to kill people off. You know what I mean? And to do not just that, you know, implementing these rotten laws. Even, I mean, historically speaking, we get rotten laws that still exist now, like minimum wages, and rotten laws that have historically hurt black people. Be it minimum wage or anything. Like, you look, even to this day, black unemployment is young unemployment is always among the highest, because of that, because, you know, they go to these rotten government schools and they don't learn any sort of skills or anything like that. So their only way to get skills that are marketable is to go get a job. But, you know, you're pricing them right out of the market with these rotten things like minimum wages. It had historically racist origins, which were implemented. You look at the Bacon-Davis Act and stuff like that, implemented by these white, you know, union members, white business owners that didn't want to, or more so white people that were wanting, they didn't want to compete against black labor, child labor, and women as well. They didn't want to compete against that, so they implemented minimum. Minimum wage is a funny thing, because that's been implemented for the same reason in other places like South Africa and Australia. And then also in Australia, they want to price out, you know, Chinese labor. And in South Africa, they wanted to price it the same thing. It's like such a rotten thing, but it still exists. And again, Democrats controlling the black leaders, you have a lot of those saying, "Oh, raise it, double price," even though it's going to price them out the market. So it's a lot of crooked crap going on by way of the state, and that's the trick, is trying to. A lot of black folks are already aware of that sort of injustice. Some of it is not legitimate, but some of it is legitimate. But the problem is they don't recognize the source. They just think, well, if we can get our guys in office, this is going to change. This is why I hate the term criminal justice reform. I hate that term, because it's like you're hoping that they're going to. They don't even follow the rules that exist right now for themselves. What the hell makes you think they're going to follow some new ones? It's not about that. It's about the institution that they represent. So, yeah, it's tough. It's certainly tough to combat that, because they halfway get it, A lot of them, it's not hard to find a black person that's critical of government, right? Because they think it's out to get them. But again, where they miss it, it's like, well, we just got to get our guys in office and then it'll change. But that's not how it works. It never works like that.
Yeah, it's basically just their people, enforcing the law.
Isn't that? It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just about to mention that. It's like they don't put two and two together and realize that who are the people that are policing their communities. Like it's no Republican ran black neighborhood that doesn't exist anywhere in America. You can find me a predominantly black neighborhood city. It's gonna be Democrat ran top to bottom. Like we saw that going on with Baltimore and the whole Freddie Gray thing, which I'm looking at the police chief, the mayor, all of these from top to bottom, the representatives in that particular area, they all got D's next to their name. So I'm like, what the hell is somehow the white Republicans are somehow to blame for this? You know what I mean? Like there's no black community that's ran by rich white Republicans. That doesn't exist anywhere. So that in itself should tell you, but that, I guess, if anything, that tells you the control that these guys have over these communities, where they can run their own communities into the ground. A lot of these previously once prosperous communities like Detroit and all these cities, that running them into the ground. These Democrats are running them into the ground and still somehow being able to yell squirrel and say that, oh, well, it's the rich white Republicans' fault. That's amazing. That's some special sort of magic.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they're looking at, well, what's the alternative? Elect some rich white Republicans come in here who obviously hate us even more than the damn Democrats do. That ain't gonna help either.
Well, at least they pretend they like you, but
yeah,
most definitely. I mean, but that's the thing. It's like, if anything, I would think, and I guess they're not thinking from a logical perspective, because if anything, that in itself should be telling you, like, all right, well, maybe it's something wrong with the institution itself, because the people that are on my side are the ones that run my city. You know what I mean? The people that claim to represent these sorts of values and these sorts of, they want the black advancement. The ones that are always paying lip service to helping the black man, helping the minority, are the ones that are in control of my city. It's for, and hell, where all these rotten drug laws, which we'll cry about all day long and say disproportionately affect black people, who the hell are enforcing these laws, and in what cities are they enforcing these laws in? Oh, well, cities with the D's next to the name. They're not putting that together and talking about the institution itself, because again, they're still held. This is why I'm saying that it's a special sort of, I don't know, spell that they got over these people, where they can have the people that have been historic. Like, this isn't anything that just started. I'm talking about for decades at a time, have been ran by one party. You know what I mean? Because that's who you've been supporting since civil rights era. Ran by one party. These predominantly black neighborhoods, predominantly black cities, have somehow convinced these guys that the opposition that doesn't even run, again, they don't support. I mean, black folks are the only people in every major election that vote 90%. Only minority group vote 90% for one party. That's amazing. The only people doing it at that high of a level. So it obviously makes sense why it's the Democrats that are running these cities. But the fact that they can't put two and two together to say, well, damn, they've been running. These cities are getting bad. I'm crying about getting my ass whooped by the police, or getting locked up in, these people are arresting me and then I get locked up in a, cage, and then, I go off to jail or I go off to prison. The people that initiate that sort of conflict are people that are in my communities that are ran by people with D's next to their name. So they don't put two and two together, even though they'll be critical all day long of the police. They don't hold them accountable. I guess if you're going to hold any, politician or any sort of party or any sort of institution, you think that, all right, well, looking at who represents it. And if you're like, all right, well, the alternative to them, if it's the Republicans, they're bad too, then you should be putting it, all right, well, maybe it's the damn institution itself, because the alternative sucks just as much. Like, all right, yeah, I agree. They suck too. So why are we thinking that this institution is going to save the black man? You know what I mean? Why are we thinking that this is going to be the route? If we're going to get any sort of prosperity, it's going to come by way of electing people with D's next to the name.
This just reminds me of when Shaun King came to
the white black guy.
Yeah, he came to endorse some criminal justice reform. What was she like?
That term triggers the hell out of me, by the way. Like I said, I hate that term.
Yeah, they were telling there's like a 4-step plan to reform Dallas so that
we have a whole video on that. We have a whole video on that where like he was praising the NRA in a way where he was saying, well, you see how they can get all these people together and over this idea or whatever about gun rights or whatever. Well, we need to do the same thing with our cause, but we need money first. So please give us all the money. Give us all the monies, please.
Oh my God, that guy's the worst, right? That guy is the I'm blocked. He doesn't, so I can't. Really? Yeah, I can't tell him about himself because he has me blocked. He blocked me a long time ago, and I was firing his ass up a long time ago. He blocked me. You know what I mean? But those sorts of people, I think those are evil, rotten sons of bitches. Excuse my language. And it's not because he's a white guy pretending to be black. That's just stupid. You know what I mean? But because he's really conning, and it's not just him. It's for every Shaine King. I mean, there's 40 Shaine Kings in the world that are using using the struggle of a lot of people to massage, not only massage the egos, but bolster them in this sort of as a sort of community representation. Like, oh, this guy represents our values. This guy represents us. And again, at the end of the day, all they do is race bait and expect the state to sort of save people. You know what I mean? That's what it all boils down to. That's what my problem is with a lot of these black leaders. You know what I mean? Because they're all expecting government to come by and change their line of thinking for them, to aid them. So they're going to use the power that they have to, even though if they ain't done it now, I mean, black folks been over here for a long time, man. And if they ain't somehow figured out how to use the government for good, you think, damn it, like, all right, well, maybe we should ditch this whole sort of notion that they're going to come save us. But I mean, it's difficult to fight against that when you have the Shaine Kings of the world that are going city to city, perpetuating this lie that all they have to do is come up with these plans and that always involve the state to fix the issue. And it's never going to come, that solution. It's not, they're the problem, and they're never going to be part of any sort of solution. And if they are, it's going to come with them getting the hell out of the way, not reforming the laws when they, again, that's why the agents of the state, that law don't mean dick when it's all said and done with. They can do whatever the hell they want because they don't really have to follow it when it's all said and done. They can enforce it all day long, but they don't have to follow it. So I mean, this is what gets me about the whole criminal. You think there's not laws right now against cops beating up people? You know what I mean? Like that's not, you go in any sort of shit that they sign, that I'm pretty sure it says you probably shouldn't whoop people's ass for no reason. You know what I mean? Like that, you probably shouldn't. That doesn't stop them from doing it. You know what I mean? So if they're not gonna, what makes these guys think that they can reform the laws? They don't follow the ones that exist right now. What makes you think that they're gonna reform the laws? And they're gonna sort of, I guess, use that power to help, you know what I mean, which is essentially what they want. It's just not going to happen. But I get it. It's hard to combat that when you have so many people like the Shaine Kings of the world. And it's not just that, they're also teaching black people to be nothing more than victims of every, that doesn't help either. So when you are a victim, you're expecting, Superman to come save you. So a guy like a Shaine King or any sort of guy that is saying that I'm going to essentially save the black man is going to look attractive when your whole existence rests upon this idea that everybody is out to get you, and every wrongdoing or every sort of unfortunate situation is due to some outside power, rich white folk holding people. Like, it's like, I don't know. They think there's some about white dude behind closed doors controlling every aspect of their lives, you know what I mean? And when you think like that, yeah, I mean, it's very easy to be a victim as opposed to getting on the offense about things. So I get it. You have to understand why a guy like Shaine King, as crooked as he is attractive to so many of these, I guess,
well,
people.
And you gotta admit, I mean, about a quarter of what he says is right. Legalizing pot. I mean, I think if Black Lives Matter had just been called Legalized Pot Matters, That would remove the pretext for
Absolutely.
about 90% of cops messing with people over, I claim I smelled some pot, this and that, deprive them of that pretext. And he goes after individual, stories of cops abuse, or, Charlottesville Nazi beat some guy half to death and he puts the guy's face out there. This guy's wanted. And, again, not that prosecution is the solution all around and whatever, but, I don't know. I kind of got a soft spot for the guy in a way because, for a leftist, at least, and I guess I got a soft spot for leftists all around anyway, man. Just because at least they care about the powerless. They're sticking up for the powerless, even if they're doing a stupid job of it, even if they got, the different aspects wrong. Instead of Black Lives Matter, it should have been accountability for killer cops.
Right.
Or
Like they're
just
halfway
legalize drugs and just get right to some more serious points. And they could have got a hell of a lot further in actually protecting Black lives by focusing on stuff like that, but then again, they're leftists. They're always going to swing and miss, but at least they're trying, at least they're swinging. And after all, I don't know, everybody's always picking on the guy for being white, but I think he pretty clearly had a black father, right? Like he said. I
don't believe it. I mean, that dude was white as you, Scott, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Like, as far when I look at him, I'm like, that's a white man, dog. Like, he ain't even, my mom's light skinned. You know what I mean? Like, my mom's, that's a light skin. That ain't no light skinned man. That's a white man that's pretending to be. But like I said, that's part of it. But that's not even my plex with him. Doesn't really come from that. It's the fact that he's so dead. And this is those types don't really do black folks justice, because I don't know if you guys heard about that story on which that chick, because he hops on shit to a fault. Because I don't know if you guys heard about that story about that one chick that claimed that she was treated unfairly, abused by this by this cop. And he comes out with this, because that's what he does. He'll take these individual stories, he'll plaster it. And this happened like 2 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. He'll plaster it all over all over his social media and stuff like that. And then everybody's demonizing this person. But the thing is that was a scenario where, like, because the cops, they came out with the body cam. Body cam showed the cop didn't do shit. Like, he didn't do anything. Like, he did nothing. Like, you want to talk about just didn't do shit wrong. Like, he did nothing wrong. He wasn't abusing her. He wasn't being like aggressive or anything. Like, that's the last nothing. But by then he had already, people were calling for the cop's head and stuff like that, which again, like, that's, because he's an agent of the state, that don't make me know, never mind, you know what I mean, or anything like that. However, it's a problem because that example was a fraud example. And all that's going to do is be used as this sort of example. Like, you see, not all of them are like this. You know what I mean? Not all of them are bad, and sort of give people sort of sympathy for this institution, because he's so, as opposed to taking the shit by issue, he's hell bent on forcing a narrative. That's what folks like Shaine King are. They're hell bent. So in the process, they might get something right, but they're so hell bent on forcing this narrative, and that is that black folks are under attack. That's the narrative that he wants to are helpless victims that are under attack, especially by law enforcement. Now, this does not negate the fact that there are instances with law enforcement being used to, almost as an extension of I mean, I'd argue that, you can make an argument essentially that you want to talk about acting in the name of white supremacy. You know what I mean? You can argue that cops have been, like, historically used as an institution to do that. You know what I mean? However, by taking these events and being dishonest with them, because you're so bent on forcing a narrative, you're not doing these things just. And this is, again, but this also goes back to the point to where he's not coming up with the right solutions, and it's not just him. It's not just Shaine.
No, he's a good example, though. What you're talking about. I mean, when the cops massacred the bikers at that rally in Waco, and instead of saying, "See, this is what we're talking about, man. These guys are getting away with murder," and instead of bringing down a parade of Black Lives Matter to support the bikers, and instead that would have been perfect. now is your turn. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
When like this would have been the best PR stunt in the world for Black Lives Matter to come and say, you white Harley riding Hell's Angels types, we're here to support you. And you know, by the way, we'd appreciate a little support too. You know what I mean? Because the problem here clearly is the police are lawless. There's no accountability for killer cops. That's the bottom line. And there was just the hugest, and you know what? Like, he just couldn't see it. It wasn't even that he made such a cynical choice. It was that he was completely blind to the possibility of what good could have been done there.
Well, at that point, Black Lives Matter was basically just a race thing. It was, if it's happening to blacks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, I mean,
that's why, like, well, anytime like you hear it's like all lives matter, dude, that's like you're the worst person ever if you put hashtag all lives matter. Every single time, because I would see people say like, oh, if you put that, you're a racist and all that.
Well, but that was wait. The point of that though is people being deliberately obtuse. When they said Black Lives Matter, again, the slogan should have been accountability for killer cops,
right?
Legalize drugs. When they say Black Lives Matter, what they're really saying is Black Lives Matter too. But then they don't want to sound that pathetic, like they're whining like, "Oh, Black Lives Matter too." But that was what they were saying.
Well, and that's true. That's true.
Black Lives Matter, and white people shut up because your lives don't. So when people say, "No, all lives matter," what they were really saying was, "Shut up and stay in your place." I don't want to.
Well, fucking all lives matter. Those same people ask them about the people flowing over the border. Do their lives matter? No. Yeah. Put them send the kids to a fucking rape camp, which is what it's turning out that these people who are running these facilities that they're sending these kids to when they separate them from their parents. It's not all lives matter. That's just all that is shut the fuck up, black people.
It's not Black Lives Matter either. I mean, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Because, and I'm not going to be cliche, but it's real shit. But Black Lives Matter, you know, and that's what it essentially started as, is Black Lives Matter. To me, I took it as the opposite. I took it as I need validation from white people. That's why I don't support that whack ass movement. And I like to be on record saying that Black Lives Matter is a fucking joke of a movement. More so because it's been co-opted by this whole feminism, transsexual bullshit. It's not even about Black lives. Y'all use that. Y'all use the dead bodies of black people to try to co-opt sort of the movement and conflate it with what the feminist bullshit. Which you ain't gotta take my word for nothing. You go to Black Lives Matter, their website, and that's what they're talking about. It's trans lives and feminism and all of this other bullshit that ain't got nothing to do with any of that. What they tried to do and what they are doing right now is try to take the idea that black lives are matter too, and turn it into this and use that platform that's given to them to fight for this other nonsensical bullshit. But me personally, I took the shit as an institution for like it's more so being used as a thing for me, at least for as I see it, validation from white folk. Because my thing is like, I don't need no motherfucking white person to say I matter. Like, what type of shit is that? Like, why would I need you to? You don't think I mess on you, but my life does matter to myself, and that's why I will support like I say a hotep sort of black nationalist over this Black Lives Matter joke of a movement. Because again, at the end of the day, they'll go support Green Party politics and all kinds of status bullshit when it's all said and done. Anyway, but do Black lives really matter? I think the slogan itself is self-defeating, because I mean, if we're gonna be completely honest, and I hate to say, like, it would have been more accurate, like Scott said, to talk about more so police accountability, because Black Lives Matter sounds bad. Because what happened.
That guy, Chris Cantwell, before he went full Nazi, I remember he actually interviewed me on his show about Syria or something. And then I hung around and listened to after that. And he was talking about a little bit of this stuff. And he was saying, you know, as a libertarian at that time, that like, yeah, there's a real problem with killer cops. And if I was black, I would notice too. Hell yeah. But then he said his criticism was, when you say Black Lives Matter, what you're really saying is, this doesn't concern you if you're not black. So don't worry about it. When it does concern everyone. And of course, just in raw numbers, cops kill more white people than black people. There are a hell of a lot more white people.
And black people kill more black people than cops. You know what I mean? So
that's the whole joke, right? Is, you know, police brutality. It's not just for black people anymore. These are rabid pit bulls completely off their chain and attacking anyone and everyone. They could kill your mom no matter what color you are, and they get away with it every time. And so to say Black Lives Matter basically says you go back to what you were doing, because this isn't about your problem.
And that's why the Sean Kings of the world didn't go to Waco.
But like, you know, the white majority are the ones with the power. And if the white majority were the ones saying, hey, on behalf of black people, on behalf of poor whites, on behalf of everybody getting killed by the cops, enough is enough, that would actually make a difference.
Yeah, most definitely. You know? But like I said, the concern wasn't about, like, it was never to me about, it was more so about, like I say, like a pat on the head, because my thing is that, like, it's so much in the community, and I get it. Like, I'm much as against the police as the next person, just because of where I stand, and but I'm not a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I think the slogan was a bad choice. Not only it got hijacked by, you know, feminist nonsense, but I think the slogan in itself is so silly, because I look at, you know, all of my family members. You know, I used to bang all of my bros, my little sister, Juanita Payne, all of these people that got shot. You know what I mean? They got killed. And they were killed by other black people, and you know, and that happens most of the time. It's not in all what they always say, and this is why I despise these groups, because they sweep those under the rug about you know, it's like, all right, well, white people kill white people is what they always say, right? But you know, white people don't make half the homicides up either. You know what I mean? In a given country, yet only 13% of the population, which says that I'm more likely to die at period, because have a homicide committed against me because I'm black. I'm a black male, but more so in the fact that it's going to be by a black person, not necessarily a cop or anything like that. So in individual numbers, it's you know, black folks are killing other black folks at a ridiculous rate. It's at a ridiculously high rate, but that shit gets swept under the rug. And this is why I'm coming out with that Anne Hathaway video today, because that's why I took so much beef for what she said, because she was saying that black people fear for their life. She said literally all, and capitalized it. Like, she just knew, you know, white leftist liberal, you know, they always know what black people are thinking, right? And she said all, and capital letter, all black people fear, you know, for their life. But my thing is, like, and she was looking at it because it was a white guy that stabbed this black girl, and that's a tragic event. Don't get me twisted. Don't get it twisted by any means. But my thing is that, when is the last time that I've heard the name of anybody that was, you know, these unfortunate events? Like, again, Juanita Payne, you can verify this story. My little sister was killed in the crossfire of a guy shooting an AK-47 out of the fucking window of a party with a bunch of youngsters. Like, what the fuck is the CNN? Then that shit happens every fucking like day. Like, I'm not over exaggerating that either, where you have people that are not only dying due to nonsense, but getting caught in a crossfire due to this nonsense, and it's getting swept. There's no media coverage or anything like that, and that should in itself, and I'm not saying that there has to be, I'm just saying that should tell you right there that the motivations of, does a black life really matter? You know what I mean? Or is it that a black life matters when it's at the hand of a white person, or when it's at the hand of law enforcement? And I'm not knocking.
And that's kind of the thing too, right? Is the cops are supposed to be your security force,
and they're not.
The guy from another gang is not sworn to protect you.
Right.
The cop, supposedly, even if you're guilty of killing somebody else's little sister, his job is still protecting your rights until your fair trial. That's it.
Right.
So and that is different.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, and I think that's the fact that there's this expert, and that's why I talk about the core, you know, from a philosophical standpoint. We talk about the black communities and where there's a critical error, because they believe that shit, right? They think that a cop is supposed to protect them, when in reality they're supposed to protect the institution that they represent. You know what I mean? It is more so than anything, and this is my issue with a lot of the I say that the expectation of a lot of black, and it's not just black folks, like you mentioned, poor whites are having this same sort of problem in their communities as well. But they think that there's this expectation, and this is my thing, and why I criticize a lot of fellow anarchists about overemphasizing the strong arm from a race standpoint when it comes to the police, because they not unknowingly, at least in my opinion, perpetuate this idea that police are up here and everybody else is right here. You know what I mean? My thing is that I agree they aren't above the law, but this is why I don't like overemphasize what it is that they do, because it's still like one of my kinfolk or anything like that got killed, whether it was at the hand of a police officer or whether it was at the hand of another black person that was or anything like that. That shit was that's a problem. You know what I mean? And I'm not gonna give those fucks the luxury, like the cops a luxury of being chill. Like, yeah, you supposed to be held above. Fuck that. Like, you not. That's the thing. I feel like your position is illegitimate, and you're not. That's why I'm heavily critical of you, because I don't believe that you are above these economic law, above property rights or anything like that. Simply because of or you got a badge. You know what I mean, or something like that. So I think, but it doesn't just come from black folks. It doesn't just come from black folks. I think this expectation is a core problem, whether it be in poor communities, whether it be in any of these or it doesn't matter whether you're rich, whether you're poor. There's an institution that goes around calling themselves a state that is as a territorial monopoly on use of force and violence, that are ruining people's lives, making people's lives miserable, and their agents are not here to protect you. No matter what they say, they're here to protect that institution, and it's going to be like that until I feel like it's ended and people realize that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just gonna have to let everyone know that as long as you have hot sauce, you carry around hot sauce with you, then you're good to go. Just like Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Big shout out to Hillary Clinton, right?
I want to let everyone know about that.
Well, and the first black president was Bill Clinton, by the way. He's the first.
Calvin Coolidge was the first.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, this was awesome. I really appreciate you guys
for sure
hanging out and having an awesome discussion, especially there towards the end. It was great.
Learned a lot.
Yeah, we did for sure. And we'll have to do it again like this sometime.
Absolutely. Let's do it again. Appreciate you guys having me.
Because there's always going to be that police and all that stuff. It's always going to have that accountability discussion. So we're definitely going to have to continue that for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. And have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Be easy.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, y'all.